Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Friday, the 26th of October, 2012. I'm Jim Ninsel, host of Political Roundtable, our weekly analysis and commentary on local, state, and national politics. Tonight on the Roundtable, we'll dig into the races for the Pima County Board of Supervisors. Joining me this evening is Pima County Democratic Chairman Jeff Rogers, National Republican Committeeman Bruce Ash, Tucson City Councilman Steve Kozachik, and Michael Farley, Chairman of Restoring Pride to Pima County, a political committee that's involved in the races for the Pima County Board of Supervisors. Thanks to all of you guys for being here. Welcome to the Roundtable for the first time, Mr. Farley. Before we begin with the Roundtable, I sat down earlier today with Mr. Farley and Pima County Administrator Chuck Huckleberry to talk about a dispute over a road project that got Mr. Farley involved in the county races earlier this year. Right, I'd like to thank both Chuck Huckleberry and Michael Farley for joining us here in the studio today to talk about some of the county issues in this year's election. One of the more unusual aspects of this election, Mr. Farley, is that you have an independent campaign committee which is running some commercials in favor of some of the Republicans who want to unseat some of the Democrats on the Pima County Board of Supervisors. And one of the reasons that you're concerned about this is that you own some property at Kolb and Valencia roads, and you've wanted to develop that property with a shopping center, and you have a dispute with the county over the way that intersection is being designed. And why do you think your design for this particular intersection, we don't have drawings or anything to go over it, but obviously this is a very busy intersection that needs some improvement. You feel as though the design that you would prefer would actually be a better design for the intersection. I'd like you to explain that to our viewers.
I'll be happy to. Could I clear up one thing?
Sure.
I am not involved in this independent expenditure committee because I didn't get my way at the county on a development thing that I was working on. I'm involved in this because I'd never done development before. I'm not a developer. I'd never been through the process at Pima County, and it was very surprising to me as how difficult it was. And I'd heard my friends in the development business and other businesses here in Pima County complain about this over the years, and I've never been involved in a business directly in Pima County until this activity came up. So I view myself as standing in for all the business people and development people in this community who are upset with the way Pima County has been run. Now, to be fair, I have come to talk about the road, and I want to give you my opinion of that, but we started 6 years ago trying to get entitlements. Part of it was doing a traffic study on the property, and I worked very closely with the people in the Pima County Department of Transportation and with my neighbor to the south, a fellow named Alan Levine. We both were required to do expensive traffic studies at the same time that Pima County was doing a very, very expensive review and analysis of the whole situation at the corner of Kolb and Valencia, which is a very, very bad corner, one of the worst in the whole valley, I believe. So anyway, the result of all of that was that it was decided by everybody. Everybody came to the same agreement that the best thing to do was to move the road to the south. The county had just bought some land between Wilmont and Kolb through a bond issue to help save Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, which was great. So the road was there. We didn't have land costs. And as part of my final plat, I agreed to give 14 acres of our property so that you could have all the property that was needed and required, with the exception of a couple of acres, I think, to move Valencia Road to the south, which would then allow this corner and this traffic problem out there in the evenings to get cleared up. So that's what I thought was going to happen, and then some changes came, and it didn't work out. There was reasons for it. I'm sure Chuck will have an explanation for it all. But that's not the reason that I'm really here.
Okay. And Mr. Huckleberry, your explanation about the intersection and why the plans have changed.
Yeah, I don't think they've changed, and I think that's the first important point. This road and this intersection didn't exist until about 1987. It was Pima County who constructed Kolb Road through Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Valencia that actually built this road in that time frame. There has been an RTA election that authorized widening of Valencia Road because it does carry a lot of traffic, and extending that all the way to Houghton Road. The project looked at a couple of alternatives, as most projects do, and Mr. Farley obviously wants the roadway to be moved to the south. so that I think it makes the development of his property better. And I think that's fine. Many landowners want that, but I think our view is that we're looking out for the taxpayers and, what's the most, we'll say, cost-effective solution that actually works. In this particular case, the solution that's going to work is one that uses the existing roadway, the one that was built by the county in 1987. And it expands the road. It creates a different type of intersection, indirect left. But we also have one of those under construction right now in the city of Tucson at Grant and Miracle Mile, and another one about to be constructed at Ina and Oracle. So I think we looked at those alternatives. We looked at the alternative of moving the roadway to the south to Mr. Farley's desired location, and it costs more. The alternative that we've looked at and probably would now recommend would be costing about $16 million. The one to the south would cost about $24 million, so it costs more. But more importantly, it doesn't work as well. It's not as effective. Total delay, and that's how traffic engineers measure the efficiency of an intersection, is 50% more on the southern intersection alignment than on the existing one.
So he's...
I have traffic engineers that would disagree with everything Chuck just said, and I don't believe that they analyze their costs properly. Again, I go back to my concern, and the reason that I got back involved in politics after a 30-year retirement period is that in dealing with the county, I made a number of deals. I had written agreements with the county. In fact, maybe Chuck has forgotten that we met in his office about 5 or 6 years ago, and he and I talked about the southern route, and he agreed that it was absolutely the best way to go, and that we would be able to put a grade-separated interchange there in the future when the Barrazo Parkway. So I made a lot of deals along the way in good faith. I gave land to the county. I shook hands a number of times, looked people in the eye, and we had a deal. And every deal they reneged on. And my opposition is not this property and not this road, because frankly, Chuck has torched this thing with this letter that he's recently sent out and backed out of the project. My objection is the way Pima County treats businesses. And the reason that we have only 800 net new jobs in this community in the last 2 years is because of the way Chuck and the government treat business people. They will not come here. You can look at CNN Money Magazine, and you'll find that we're the worst-rated city for business friendliness. I'm sorry, Detroit's the worst. We're above Detroit. I apologize. There's just no reason for this sort of attitude. The truth is, 5 years ago, I had Walmart wanted to build on this property and a developer from California. If Chuck had worked with us, that place would be built, people would have a place to shop, there'd be tax revenue coming in, the new road would be built. Probably that California developer would have helped pay for a lot of it. But that didn't happen, and that doesn't happen on anything in this community. And that is the reason that we have poverty. We're number 6 in the country in poverty. We have potholes all over the place. They're not taking care of the business people, and the business people aren't coming here. And that's why I got involved in this election. This interview, and Chuck wanting to come talk to me about this road, Sharon calling me a greedy developer and telling everybody that she voted against this project is not true. I can show the minutes of the meeting where Sharon voted for this twice, when we got a tentative plat and a final plat. There's been no other vote. So Sharon's never voted against this. This is all a smokescreen, in my view, to avoid what is really the issues here, which Sharon claims she wants to talk about, and that is jobs, unemployment rate of 16% in her district, poverty at a very high level, and potholes. That's the issues. I haven't heard a word from anybody in Pima County about that. And I'm surprised Sharon isn't here instead of Chuck.
Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later on the roundtable. But Mr. Huckleberry, if you'd like to...
talk about the road. I met with Mr. Farley on a number of occasions. We have a chronology of all the meetings and the discussions, and Mr. Farley was first going to finance a lot of the cost of the roadway relocation through a community's facilities district. That never happened. The next option that Mr. Farley was trying to entice the county to move the road to the south was he would impose a 2% sales tax on Walmart and use those proceeds to pay for the excess cost. That never happened. The next item was we're going to go to Congress. We're going to go try and get stimulus money through, I believe, Mr. Farley's Washington connections. And that never happened. And so, we really have to rely on what's possible and what we can do. and what we can do in the best interest of the taxpayer. And I would completely disagree with Mr. Farley in his assessment with regard to bonding, because bonding and the ability of business to work in this community. For every CNN article he can cite, I can cite one just the opposite. And so I think that it's just all really the road and the road improvement has nothing to do with Mr. Farley. What Mr. Farley has done with regard to funding these campaigns that are trying to influence the outcome of an election, which is the Board of Supervisors, is he's put us in a position where we can't continue with the project. No matter what we do and what we would select as an alternative, we would be viewed as biased. And so that's why we've turned the project back to the RTA for their implementation, because he basically has put us in a position to where even if we select the most cost-effective alternative, the alternative that was best for traffic, Mr. Farley could claim that it was politically motivated because he was running campaigns trying to basically get other members elected to the Board of Supervisors.
All right, and we've got about 30 seconds here, Mr. Farley, before we go to the regular roundtable, but if you'd like to respond.
Well, first of all, I see absolutely no reason to take this road and turn it back to the RTA, because it's not me that's getting hurt. And Sharon's already said she's voted against this evil developer once in her ads. So why are they afraid of whatever I'm going to do? He's either going to do what he wants or not. The problem is I kept coming back and saying there's a better way to do it. There's a cheaper way to do it. There's other things. There's higher costs on the things that you want to do. And they wouldn't listen. He talked about my bond issue. I did try to get some bonds. This is a letter from Mr. Bernal after I spent 2 or 3 meetings with him saying, sorry, we don't need your help. We've got all the money here. So that's a bogus argument on his part. This goes back again to business and unfriendliness towards it. And I never wanted to impose a 2% tax on Walmart. He did. And he's got it on 3 or 4 different places. La Encantada is a place that's got a 2% imposed sales tax, which, by the way, most counties don't have. He's the only one that does. So we'll get time's up, and
okay.
I think that's enough.
So
we have a disagreement.
Right. I'd like to thank both of you for coming in here and hopefully enlightening our viewers a little bit about what's going on with this intersection. And we'll come back with Mr. Farley and the regular roundtable in just one moment. And we're back with the roundtable. Let's talk about these county races, because that seems to be the focus of today's show, and we haven't talked that much about them on this program. Anyway, Bruce, District 3, where Sharon Bronson is facing challenger Tanner Bell. Bronson's been in office for 4 terms now. She's going for a 5th term. Democratic district. Tanner Bell, a Republican here, trying to knock her out of office. Uphill climb for him. How do you see this one playing out?
It's going to be a tough race for Tanner, but it is time for a change. Unemployment in District 3 is nearly double what the state average is. Poverty rates through the roof, and really not enough results from TRIO, which is something Supervisor Bronson has chaired, and very, very little action in terms of new jobs here in Pima County. It's a tough race for Sharon Bronson because she's got to run on her record. Tanner Bell, on the other hand, is a regional development major at the University of Arizona, part of the U of A football team. He's a fresh face, and he's somebody who's going to throw himself right into this job, and I think do a fabulous job.
And Jeff, you think how do you see this?
I think it's an uphill climb for Tanner Bell. I mean, he hasn't been able to raise any money. He's been completely dependent upon the dark money raised by Mr. Farley here and the sort of suspicious various PACs and other groups that are funding it. And I don't think that's going to play very well with the voters here in Pima County. Negative ad run by independent groups or so-called independent groups. We filed a complaint, which I've got a copy of here, with the Secretary of State, the County Attorney, and the Attorney General's office, reflecting that much of the activities of this dark money group that Mr. Farley is responsible for are illegal. Some of them even amount to as high as crimes, some misdemeanors and possibly 1 felony. So, they've got a lot of problem there, and we're going to work on this and make sure the voters understand that what has happened here is that Mr. Farley has created 2 groups, one of them a Delaware corporation, which he's a officer in, and in that group they are taking money and to influence campaigns here in Arizona. And because of the type of group he's founded back there, the money's all secret. We have no idea where the money's coming from. And then he's taking that money, and then he's the chair of another group, the one you just mentioned, People for a Better Pima County. And all of that money flows into that group. And then that group's money, which is hiring Tagline to do many of the commercials and much of the media for them. Well, Tagline happens to also be the group that has handled publicity for Tanner Bell and was running his campaign until they switched over to Mr. Farley's two groups and are running those two groups' media buys as well. So this is clearly a coordinated effort, which is against the law. We saw how Tom Horn recently is facing a $1.5 million fine, or 3 times the $500,000 in illegally coordinating activities that he engaged in. So we feel pretty good that that once the voters start hearing about this dark money and this anonymous donors and trying to come after the voters of Pima County with out-of-state, out-of-town money, that they're going to respond accordingly. Sharon Bronson has done a wonderful job for many years for this county. We've all been through a very rough recession, the worst since the Great Depression, and I think she has focused recently on biosciences and bringing bioscience jobs to Arizona. I think she's going to hold on to that one, and it's an uphill climb for Mr. Bell. And I'd like to see some way that we can focus on shedding light on these activities of this dark money, because this is, our democracy is now for sale, and I don't want to see people like Mr. Farley buying our democracy through secret groups that funds secret organizations that then lump sum give it to other organizations.
Let's give Mr. Farley a chance.
Take the tinfoil cap off.
To respond here in terms of...
Let me get out of my asbestos suit first. I mean, I have never seen such flame-throwing in my entire life. Criminal activity? Jeff, you've got to be kidding. I want to ask one problem. No, I have a question for you. Will you come back and apologize when the election's over and all of this stuff has been processed? Just say yes or no.
No, I'm not. You're chairman.
I'm asking you if you're
chairman of the Restore Pride in Pima County.
I am, but will you apologize if you're wrong?
Aren't you also the only corporate officer of Arizonans for a Brighter Future?
I am. Okay. Will you apologize if you're wrong?
And haven't you
You've
also
called me a criminal. Will you apologize if you're wrong?
Haven't you also put all of the money for Arizonans for a Brighter Future into that?
Let me just say
let's give Mr.
this
Farley
is
a chance.
Exactly what is wrong with this entire campaign. The real truth is that the Democratic Party and Sharon Bronson, by example that you've all just seen, do not wish to talk about the issues. Making me a developer and saying Sharon voted against all this, that's not true. Everything he just said is absolutely baloney. And the issues here are, as Mr. Ash said a minute ago, Sharon Bronson, on her website, very first paragraph, third sentence, I have laser-like focus on getting jobs for this community. And she's headed up TRIO for a number of years. TRIO has spent $13 million in the last 3 or 4 years. They've traveled all over the United States, Alabama. They had a big party in San Diego. And all they really had to do was get in their car and drive up the road to Maricopa County, because Maricopa County in the last 2 years has created 70,000 net new jobs, and we've had 800. That is the really big issue here. And the result of that poor job performance has got us ranked as number 6 in the country in poverty. Now, these are the faults of Sharon Bronson, the Democrats that have led this community for 16 years, and that is what they don't want to talk about. Those are issues that are really the things that are important to the community, not whether I'm a criminal or have secret money. The money that I've raised is all 100% legal. I've hired one of the best law firms in Washington, D.C. I have a great election lawyer in Phoenix who's working with me to make sure we're following every Arizona law. I've spent over $30,000 on lawyers to make sure that we do it correctly and under the law. And I can promise you that if Mr. Rogers has the guts, he will come back and apologize when this is over. I've never heard such a word. Well, but I'll let him go back and want to attack me
today with a 13-page memo
no, I
outlining
wasn't,
all
sir.
of this.
No, I was not.
Let me tell you another thing.
Let me tell you
another thing. Is that this is one of the more simple things. When you take out an ad against Sharon Bronson or for Tanner Bell, you are required within 48 hours to send a certified mail to the opponent.
Would you like to come to my office and see the receipts?
We don't.
Would you like to come to my office?
None of those. No, none of these campaigns where you've attacked these people with this outside money.
When you don't have a record to run on, you run on the little things, and that's exactly what Jeff's talking about here. The record for Sharon Bronson is pretty clear.
To this group?
No.
No, you're not going to. Okay.
No, and you know why I'm not going to?
Why aren't you going to do that?
Jeff, it's supported by the Supreme Court.
Let me explain why. Because I'm the first guy that's ever challenged the people at Pima County that run the place. I'm the first guy that's ever stood up and tried to do something about it. And you know what I've discovered? I was able to form this organization legally, and people can contribute to it legally. And I got a lot of contributions because they all want to keep their name quiet. And the reason is they have businesses here, and they know what you Democrats do. You retaliate, you ruin their businesses, you make it difficult for them to move, and that is what the people, that's why we don't have businesses here. People have gotten the word about this place, and you have to.
Outrageous.
You
We've
have
not retaliated against any businesses
You
of
are
any
lying
kind.
through your
That's
teeth.
ridiculous.
Steve hasn't had a chance to
Can I
weigh in.
shine a light on this?
Come on, Steve.
I get the
Let's join
last 6
fun.
minutes.
Okay, great.
So,
Thank
all right.
you.
First of all, Sharon Bronson has reached out to me. We have worked well together, bipartisan. I'm really tired, and I think the community is tired of this really hyper-partisan rhetoric. We have co-authored an op-ed in the Star on issues that we can work together on. We need to get this community needs to start coming together instead of this divide between the party lines. It's not productive. It's harmful to the way we grow. The development issue that Mr. Farley was involved with, to me, is an example of just a network dysfunctionality in this community where the city and the county and developers aren't playing well together. I think the poster child for that is the River Craycroft issue that we've spoken about on this show before. Whoever wins in the District 1 race, Ally Miller, Nancy Young-Wright, we're going to be getting that group back together with the developers and the city and the county and the RTA, and we're going to fix that thing. Right now, the city and the county are all claiming poverty, and they're just running away from it. I'm going to bring them back together. The part about the dark money or whatever, I think where this is going to wind up is the astonishingly stupid admission made to you by the person who runs Tagline that they were actually gifting campaign. They're letting campaigns run over budget. That is a violation of campaign finance law. And I don't know where you were in that thing, but I certainly know that for somebody to go on the record and say to you that, gee whiz, these campaigns owe us tens of thousands of dollars, that's a violation of the law. And it's quite brazen for that person to go on the record with you and say that. If I were one of their candidates, I'd be running for the hills and saying, I'm done with this group. As far as the names not being released, correct. The court has ruled on that. On the other hand, if we want to talk about the Big Tent First Amendment speech rights and all that, I think the people have a right to know who's speaking to when they write those big checks.
If I can just interrupt for a second, a couple points. First is we live in a community where people are afraid to speak up. And we've had Democrat leadership here in Tucson and Pima County for an awfully long time. They've had ample opportunity to fix the economy, to make this a city that is job friendly, and frankly, it's not.
You know what? We just in the last 2 weeks. No, that's right. But you guys took 15 minutes. I got 2, so I'm going to take 2 more. In the last 2 weeks, we have kickstarted nearly $50 million of private sector development in the downtown area. That's the last 2 weeks. That's a 6-to-1 Democratic to Republican majority on the city council. We're getting this stuff done, irrespective of the hyper-partisan politics that are dividing this community. We have got to find a way to come together and work as one body instead of this dysfunctional network breakdown. And I've just got to tell you guys that, the community deserves better than to see the two major parties just going like this at each other every week. And
you express an independent view, Stephen. But the fact of the matter is, whether it's Tucson, Los Angeles, Detroit, Philadelphia, other cities where Democrats are in control, the focus is on the wrong things. It ought to be jobs. It should be the creation of wealth for all people within the community.
I think $50 million speaks pretty highly of what we're getting done right
and that's
now.
great, and I applaud you for doing it.
And it doesn't matter who was in charge during the last 4 years.
It does.
It was awful all across America.
Because
and
philosophy
everybody
does
is
make
pulling
a difference,
together
Jeff.
and doing their best, as Steve indicated here. And I have every confidence in the county right now. I don't know the merits of Mr. Farley's development or whether it's good or bad. All I know is that he's using secret money to attack what I think are fine people who have done a fine job in this community, and I'm offended by that. And I just don't think anonymous money should be doing this.
I'm offended by the fact that you have not been willing once to answer the issue regarding jobs. You say it's been tough. Sure, it's been tough for everybody. Phoenix is doing unbelievably well, and we stink in jobs. Now, Jeff, that's all your fault and the Democratic Party's fault. There's no question about it. You've been leading this place all the last 16 years, and if you want to throw a few flames, let me throw some back at you here. It's your fault, and the people are suffering from it. That's why we have a high poverty level. You refuse to speak to that. You want to talk about secret money and all this other BS? Get the smoke out of the way and let's talk issues. That'd make him happy, make me happy as well. By the way, you trashed a company with incorrect information, and you're a public employee.
Actually, I didn't.
You did.
No,
Tagline has not done all of the things that you said you do.
No,
you don't
as a matter
have
of
your
fact,
facts
the
correct.
lady went on the record with Jim Ninsel
But your
and
facts
admitted.
that you just
let
went
me
through were
finish
not
now,
correct.
because you just made
No,
an
I'm
I'll
just-
allegation.
I'll give you a copy of this.
Well,
and it
just
goes
a
all
second.
through that
Wait a minute, time
tagline and all of the obscure ties between these
Now,
groups.
forgetting the ties, she was on the record with Ninsel saying that she allowed candidates to overspend. That's a fact, sir.
Yeah, but the numbers you threw out were incorrect.
It was tens of thousands of dollars, was it not, Jim? You can play in this game, too.
It turns into an illegal contribution if you don't pay the money back promptly.
Boy, I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to spend more time with you fellas. I really am.
Okay, we're down to about a half a minute, and this has been one of our more lively conversations, certainly on the roundtable here. But I guess there's the other race that we've got some interest in is the District 1 race where Allie Miller is running against Nancy Young Red, and unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have time to talk about that one. But next week, because we are out of time for tonight, you can learn more about what's happening in politics by visiting azpm.org, and to find out the latest from AZPM, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can stay tuned next for the News Hour, and then at 8:30, you can tune into Arizona Week for a look at the propositions facing Arizona voters. Next week, Arizona Illustrated will bring you more political forums as Election Day nears. I'm Jim Ninsel. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my guests, and have a great weekend.